So previously we performed signal addition on the basic test signals such as step and ramp signal. So here we will perform signal addition on some random signals of various shapes. Okay. So here we have two signals, x1t having this shape and x2t. Now we have to perform signal addition x1t plus x2t. So the principle of signal addition, which says that at each of the time instants, respective time instants, we have to add the signal amplitude, the respective signal amplitudes. So we'll do that. So starting from t equals to 0, for x1t the amplitude is 2. At t equals to 0, the amplitude of x2t is 0. So when we add 2 plus 0, we will get 2 at t equals to 0, the resultant here, the starting point. Then at t equals to 1, it is very important here, at t equals to 1, there is a transition in this signal, a drop from 2 to 1, a high to low, you can say, transition from 2 to 1 by 1 unit. So at t equals to 1, you can think of it as having two values. It falls from 2 to 1, but here it has only one single value, which is 1. So for 2, considering 2 first, the result will be 2 plus 1, which is 3. Okay, 3. Then the value drops from 2 to 1. The final value of x1t at t equals to 1 is 1. For that value 1, we will add it with 1, we will get 2. So there will be a drop here. Okay. So again I will repeat, at t equals to 1, for x1t, it has two values. This here 2, then it drops down to 1. So for this 2, here it has only a single value at t equals to 1, which is 1 for x2t. So for 2, when we add 1 with it, it will be 3. And for this 1, when we add 1 with it, it will become 2. So we have to consider these 2 points because there is a transition, a high to low from 2 to 1. Okay. So this is very important, this point, because there is a transition, a high to low transition having two values. Okay, amplitude values at t equals to 1. Okay. So 3 to 2. Now for the entire duration from 1 to 3 and from 1 to 3, the signal values are constant in both the cases. Here x1t, it is 1 from 1 to 3, here also from 1 to 3 it is 1. So during this entire interval from 1 to 3, the value will be 1 plus 1, which is equal to 2. Okay, here it is also 1, here it is also 1. So it will be 1 plus 1, 2 from 1 to 3, which is 2. Okay. Now again the point 3 here is important, same as point 1. There is a upward transition from 1 to 2. Here it is 1, then it rises to 2 almost instantly. Okay. So for 1, this at t equals to 3, for x2t at t equals to 3, the value is 1. So for 1, when we add 1 with this one, it will be 2, which is this. Then for the upward transition, the final value is 2. When we add 1 with that, it will become 3. Okay, same as t equals to 1 case. It has two values at t equals to 3, 1 and 2. There is a almost instant upward transition from 1 to 2. Therefore we have to consider two values at t equals to 3 for x1t, 1 and 2. But here it is fixed 1, only 1 at t equals to 3. So there will be an upward transition here also. Then at 4, the value is 2 first, see here 2, then there is an instant drop up to 0. Okay, almost instantly it drops to 0. So you have to consider these two values. Okay, so here it is 2, but here it is 0, only 0 for x2t. So first we'll add 2 plus 0, which will be 2. So it will be 2. And again the final value is 0 in both the case, so it will be 0 plus 0, 0. So that's why it will also be 0. So the shape of the signal is something like this, x1t plus x2t. Okay, this. So always for these sharp transitions where there is a high to low or low to high transition, there you have to be extra careful. You have to consider both these points, okay, the initial and the final. Okay, so that's why these points also here at the initial stage t equals to 0 and 2. So you have to consider both the points. So 0 to 0 0, and again 2 plus 0 2. Okay, this transition, upward transition. Similarly here at t equals to 1, it has two values, 2 and 1. It had a 2 to 1 transition, but here it was constant fix. So we had to consider 2 points. So first we added 1 with 2, we got 3. Then we added 1 with this 1, we got 2. And this was a constant value, and during the entire interval 1 to 3 the value was constant, which was 1. Here also it was 1, so we got 2. Same case for 3 to 4. Okay, two values, we added both the one at the two values, the initial and the final, and we got the result. Okay, so this is this signal addition on these two signals. So previously we performed x1t plus x2t on these two signals. In this case we will perform the x1t minus x2t, a sort of signal subtraction. Okay, so you can visualize it as x1t plus minus x2t, that is x2t amplitude inverted, but directly we will perform the subtraction. Okay, so the same concept, at each of these time instant we have to subtract x2t from x1t, the amplitude values. Okay, so at t equals to 0, this x1t, it has two values, the initial value 0, final value 2. So we have to consider both of them, but here in case of x2t it has only one value because there is no transition at t equals to 0. So it is only 0. So first 0 minus 0, which is 0, then 2 minus 0, which is 2. Okay, this. Then at t equals to 1, again the x1t, it has two values because there is a sharp downward transition from 2 to 1. Okay, so we have to consider both of them. For 2, here at t equals to 1, x2t, it is 1. So for 2 it will be 2 minus 1, which is 1. And for 1, the final value 1, if we subtract 1 from this one, it will be 0. So it will be look something like this. Okay, then for the entire duration, the interval from 1 to 3, the value is 1, x1t, and here also it is 1 from 1 to 3. So for this entire duration, the value x1t minus x2t will be 1 minus 1, 0. So it will be 0, 1 to 3. Then again at 3, there is a upward transition, sharp upward transition from 1 to 2 in case of x1t, but here it is still 1 at t equals to 3. So we have to consider both the values. So for 1, here also 1, so 1 minus 1, 0, which is there. Then for this 2, it will be 2 minus 1, which is 1. Then at 4, the value of x1t, it has a sharp downward transition from 2 to 0. So we will consider two values, 2 and 0. So for 2, here x to t at t equals to 4, it is 0. It is finally a gradual transition with a certain slope, the value is 0. So but here it has two values because there is a sharp transition from 2 to 0. So for 2 minus 0, it will be 2, okay, at 4, this. And finally it is also 0, this is also 0 because downward transition. So 0 minus 0, it is 0. So it will be like this. Okay, so this is the final shape waveform of x1t minus x2t. So always these transitions, the sharp transitions, they are very important because we have to consider both the values, the initial, the final. Here 0 to 2, sharp transition at t equals to 0. So you have to consider both 0 and 2. But here at t equals to 0, this x2t has only one value, which is 0. But here because of this sharp upward transition, this x1t has two values at t equals to 0. Okay, 0 and 2. Similarly, at t equals to 1, there is a sharp downward transition from 2 to 1. So you have to consider both the values, 2 and 1. But here for x2t at t equals to 1, it has only one value, which is 1. So always these transition points are very important. You have to consider both the values, and then you have to just perform respective signal addition or a subtraction of the amplitudes, and then you have to join the points. Okay, so this is the signal addition and a form of subtraction also, which we have performed on these two signals.